The letter said he was not coming. Clara Whitmore read it again, her eyes moving over the same 12 words, as if they might change if she stared long enough. They did not. The ink stayed dark and steady on the page, firm and cold as a shut door. Upon further consideration, I find that our arrangement no longer suits my circumstances. I wish you well in your future endeavors. No apology, no reason, just a clean ending to a future she had crossed half a country to begin. The train had pulled away 3 hours ago, leaving behind steam, noise, and Clara sitting on a wooden crate on the platform of Willow Creek Station. The town was small enough that she had almost missed the sign when they arrived, a faded board with peeling paint, a single wooden building. One bench, one telegraph machine, clicking somewhere inside like a lonely heartbeat. The sun pressed down hard. Heat gathered at the back of her neck and slid beneath the collar of her blue calico dress. She had chosen blue because his letters said he liked modest colors. The fabric clung now in ways that made her wish she had worn anything else. Everything she owned sat in one oak trunk at her feet. 3 dresses, her mother's Bible, a faded photograph, $4 folded inside her glove, and nowhere to go. She folded the letter carefully and slipped it back into her pocket. That same pocket had once held his first letter, the one filled with promises about wide fields and cattle and children who would run through tall grass. She had burned that letter on the train somewhere past St. Louis. She did not want reminders of dreams that no longer belonged to her. "Mighty hot day to be waiting," a voice said. Clara looked up. An older man stood nearby holding a tin cup. His face was lined deep from years under open sky. A faded badge hung crooked on his vest. "You got folks coming, miss?" he asked. Clara swallowed. "I thought I did," she said. The station master nodded slowly, as if he had heard that answer before. He handed her the cup. The water was warm, but clean. "That's a hard kind of waiting," he said. "Hardest kind there is." She drank in small sips. Her mother had always said, "Never gulp water when you do not know when the next drink will come." A carriage rolled past moments later, black and polished. Fine horses pulling it. On the door was a crest she recognized from letters, a bold H surrounded by cattle horns. Harrison Ranch. Her heart rose for half a second. The carriage did not slow. It passed without even a glance. Clara watched until the dust settled, and there was nothing left to see. That was when she knew for certain. He was not coming. He had never planned to. She did not cry. Crying was for girls who still believed someone might turn around at the last moment. She was 26 years old. She had $4, 3 dresses, and a splinter working its way beneath her thumbnail from gripping the crate too tightly. Across the street, in the shadow of a post outside the saloon, a man stood watching. Silas Turner had come into town for rope and salt. He came every month, bought what he needed, left without speaking much to anyone. Today, he had not moved for nearly an hour. He watched the woman on the crate read a letter again and again, watched her shoulders pull inward like she was trying to fold herself smaller. He knew that posture. He had worn it the winter his father was buried behind the barn. The saloon door swung open beside him. Laughter drifted out. The smell of whiskey followed. He did not go in. "Whiskey?" the bartender asked when Silas finally stepped inside a minute later. Silas took the glass but did not drink. "That gal out there," he said. "What's her story?" The bartender snorted. "Harrison's mail-order bride. Came all the way from Philadelphia. He sent word this morning he ain't taking her. Said she ain't worth the trouble. Silas stared at the untouched whiskey. Outside, the woman stood and tried to lift her trunk. It rose only a few inches before slipping from her grasp. She stumbled. Silas set the glass down. The liquid rippled once and went still. He was already moving toward the door. The station master looked up as Silas stepped inside. "Help you?" "The woman," Silas said quietly. "What's her name?" "Clara Whitmore." Silas nodded once and turned back toward the platform. The sun had begun to lower, painting the town in softer light. Clara stood beside her fallen trunk, staring at nothing. He walked toward her slowly, so she would hear his boots on the gravel. She turned. Her eyes were cautious, tired. "Miss Whitmore?" he said. She straightened. "Do I know you?" "No, ma'am." He removed his hat. "Name's Silas Turner. I got a small ranch about half a day west." She waited. Her face did not change. "I heard what happened," he said. "About Harrison." Her chin lifted slightly. "News travels fast," she said. "It does." A fly buzzed between them. The town was quiet, the kind of quiet that feels like everyone is listening. "I could use some help," Silas said finally. "Cooking, cleaning, nothing fancy. Just room and board. No promises beyond that." Her eyes narrowed. "You do this often? Pick up women at train stations?" "First time." "That's supposed to comfort me?" "It's the truth." She studied him, his dust-covered boots, the worn leather of his belt, the scar near his thumb. He did not look like a man who made grand promises. "Why me?" she asked. Silas looked at her for a long moment. "Because I know what it's like," he said. "Sitting somewhere, nobody's coming for you." Something shifted in her expression, just slightly. The station master stepped out behind them. "He's a decent man," he said. "Quiet, but decent." The sun dipped lower. Another hour, and it would be dark. Clara looked at her trunk, at the empty street, at the sky turning gold and orange. Then she looked at Silas. "All right," she said softly. Silas bent and lifted her trunk. It was heavier than he expected, but he did not show it. He set it in the back of his buckboard and returned. This time, when he held out his hand, she placed hers in it. Her fingers were cool despite the heat. He helped her up beside him. The horse started forward. Willow Creek grew smaller behind them. Clara looked back only once. The station, the saloon, the road she had arrived on. Then she faced forward. The prairie stretched yeeway and endless before them. She did not know where she was going. She did not know the man beside her. But for the first time that day, she was no longer waiting alone. The prairie stretched miles in every direction, rolling like an ocean made of grass. Clara sat stiff beside Silas on the buckboard, her hands folded tight in her lap. The wind tugged at loose strands of her hair and carried the dry scent of earth and distance. Neither of them spoke for a long while. Silas held the reins steady. He did not look at her, but he was aware of every small movement she made, the way she shifted when the wagon hit a rut, the way she kept glancing back at the shrinking town until it disappeared completely. After an hour, the sun dipped lower, turning the sky gold. "You live alone?" Clara asked. "Yes, ma'am." "That doesn't trouble you?" He thought about that. It did at first. "And now?" "Now it's just quiet." Clara looked out at the land. She had never seen so much space in her life. In Philadelphia, buildings crowded one another. Streets were loud. You could not take 5 steps without brushing shoulders with someone. Here, you could shout, and no one would answer. They stopped by a creek before sunset, so the horse could drink. Clara stepped down carefully, ignoring the offer of his hand this time. She needed to prove to herself she was still capable. The water was clear and cool. She knelt and splashed some onto her face. The heat of the day had worn her thin. Silas stood a few feet away. "You can turn back," he said suddenly. Clara looked up. "And go where?" "Town. Maybe find work." She almost smiled. "As what? A seamstress with no shop? A wife with no husband?" Silas did not answer. They rode again as the sky darkened. When they crested the final hill, Clara saw it. The house stood alone against the fading light. Weathered wood, a sagging fence, a roof that had seen better days. But smoke rose steady from the chimney. "It ain't much," Silas said. "I've seen worse," she replied. Inside, the house smelled of dust and old wood. The table was solid oak, though coated in grime. The stove looked worn but sturdy. There were books on a shelf, a quilt folded neatly on a narrow bed in a small side room. Clara walked slowly through the space, taking it in. This was not the grand ranch she had imagined months ago, but it was real. That first evening, she cooked with what little she found in the pantry: beans and bacon, dry bread. Silas sat quietly at the table, watching her move around the kitchen like she belonged there. "Thank you," he said, when she set a plate before him. It sounded like a word he had not used in a long time. Days began to settle into a rhythm. Clara cleaned. She scrubbed floors until the wood showed through pale and smooth. She washed windows until sunlight poured in clear and bright. She organized the shelves, aired out blankets, and swept dust from corners that had not seen a broom in years. Silas worked outside, repairing fence posts, mending the roof, hauling water, chopping wood. They spoke in short pieces at first. "Pass the salt. More coffee. Need anything from town?" But something softened between them. On the third day, Clara found a patch of soil behind the house. Weeds choked it, but beneath the surface the dirt was dark and rich. "Mind if I plant something?" she asked. Silas looked at her hands, already streaked with soil. "It's your kitchen," he said. "Plant what you want." She found old seed packets in a wooden box. Basil, mint, sage. She planted them carefully, pressing each seed into the earth as if placing hope into the ground. That night, as she sat on the porch reading one of the worn books from the shelf, she heard it. A harmonica. Soft at first, then stronger. A melody that carried sadness in every note. She did not go inside. She just listened. When the song ended, Silas stepped out onto the porch. "Ain't played in 2 years," he said. She did not ask why. Weeks passed. The house grew warmer, cleaner, brighter. One afternoon, as Clara knelt in the garden watching green shoots push through soil, she heard hoofbeats. A rider approached fast, dust trailing behind him. He wore a polished vest with a silver pin shaped like a bold H. Her stomach tightened. "Miss Whitmore?" he called. "Yes?" "I work for Mr. Harrison. He says he made a mistake. Wants to speak with you. Offer you the life you were promised." Clara felt the world tilt slightly. "He had his chance," she said quietly. "He's a wealthy man," the rider pressed. "Big house, security, a proper life. Better than this." He looked around at the small house, the worn fence, the simple garden. The words were meant to wound. They did. Clara's grip loosened on the watering can. It slipped, spilling water into the dirt. She stumbled, falling hard into the mud she had just soaked. The rider laughed under his breath. Humiliation burned hotter than the sun above her. "Tell him no," she said. The rider shrugged and turned his horse. Silas had seen enough from across the yard. He walked toward her slowly. "What did he say?" he asked. "Nothing that matters." She pushed past him into the house, leaving muddy footprints across the clean floor. In the small bedroom, she closed the door and slid to the floor. Shame washed over her in heavy waves. Later, when she finally opened the door, a plate of food sat on the floor outside. Cold beans and bacon, a fork placed neatly beside it. No knocking, no questions, just quiet care. Beneath the plate was a folded piece of paper. 2 words written in rough handwriting. "Stay, please." Clara pressed the note against her chest. The next morning, she stepped onto the porch where Silas sat with 2 cups of coffee. "I'm not leaving," she said. He nodded once. They did not need more words than that. Over the following days, something changed. They spoke of their parents, of loss, of loneliness. He told her about his mother, who had loved poetry and music. She told him about her mother, who had worked until her hands bled. They planted sunflowers together in front of the porch, pressing seeds into the earth side by side. For the first time since she had known him, Clara heard Silas laugh. It was rough and unused, but real. And when she laughed with him, it felt like something long broken had begun to mend. As the sun set that evening, painting the prairie in red and gold, Clara looked at him. "That man did me a favor," she said quietly. Silas glanced at her to bat her. Biggest one he ever did. Their hands brushed on the porch step. This time, neither of them pulled away. The basil had grown past Clara's ankles by the time summer settled over the prairie. She knelt in the garden, her hands deep in warm soil, and breathed in the sharp green scent of fresh leaves. The fence Silas had rebuilt stood straight and strong behind her. The roof no longer leaked. The windows shone clear in the sunlight. The small house that had once felt like a forgotten place now looked lived in, looked cared for. Silas worked near the road, driving the last nail into a new gate. His movements were steady and sure. He did not rush anymore. He did not move like a man trying to outrun something behind him. He moved like a man who had decided to stay. Clara stood and brushed dirt from her dress. It was blue calico, stitched by her own hands from fabric she had chosen in town. It fit her well. It felt like hers. "Supper in an hour," she called. He nodded and walked toward the barn. Inside, the kitchen was warm with the smell of herbs hanging near the window. The oak table gleamed from weekly polishing. Clara sliced tomatoes and crushed basil between her fingers. The simple meal came together easily now. Potatoes fried in bacon fat, fresh bread, mint steeping in hot water for tea. When Silas stepped inside, he paused just beyond the doorway. "Fence is done," he said. "I saw." He came to stand beside her at the counter. "You want to help?" she asked. He hesitated. "Don't know how." "I'll show you." She placed a knife in his hand and guided it with her own. His first slice was uneven. The second was worse. She laughed. The sound came freely now. Bright and unguarded. Silas looked at her, then tried again. The third slice was nearly perfect. "See?" she said. He gave a small smile, a real one this time. They ate together as the sun dipped lower. Light filled the room with gold. The house felt full in a way it never had before. "Ain't never thought this place could look like a home," Silas said quietly. Clara looked around. It just needed someone to believe it could, she replied. After supper, they stepped onto the porch to watch the sunset. The sky burned orange and red before fading into purple. The prairie stretched endless before them. The air was warm, heavy with the scent of grass and distant cattle. Silas lifted the harmonica. The tune he played was different now. Lighter. Stronger. It carried something hopeful in it. When the last note faded, Clara turned to him. "You going to play every night now?" "Only if you're listening. I suppose I can manage that." He set the harmonica down. Silence settled around them, soft and peaceful. "Silas," she said gently. "Yeah. That man did me a favor." Silas looked out over the land. "Reckon he did." She shifted closer without thinking. Their shoulders touched. "I was waiting for someone who never planned to come," she said. "Turns out I wasn't meant to be waiting at all." Silas's hand moved slowly, careful as ever. His fingers found hers resting on the porch step. She turned her palm upward. He laced his fingers through hers. The grip was steady, warm, certain. The sun slipped fully below the horizon. Stars began to appear, scattered across the wide black sky. "Ma's buried behind the barn," Silas said after a while. "Under the cottonwood." "I know," Clara said softly. "You don't mind staying somewhere with ghosts?" She looked at him. "I don't mind staying somewhere with roots." That made him go quiet. A few weeks later, the sunflowers began to rise. Green stalks first, then tall stems reaching toward the sky. By late summer, bright yellow heads faced the house like small suns greeting each morning. Clara stood in front of them one afternoon when a wagon rolled slowly up the road. Her stomach tightened for a moment. But it was not Harrison. It was Buford, the station master, bringing mail and supplies. He tipped his hat when he saw her. "Looks like you found your footing," he said. Clara smiled. "Looks like I did." Silas came to stand beside her. Buford glanced between them and nodded once, satisfied. As the wagon rolled away, Clara looked at the house, the garden, the fence, the sunflowers swaying gently in the breeze. "I wrote him," she said. Silas turned toward her. "Told him I wasn't coming back." And I thanked him. "For what?" "For not showing up." Silas studied her face for a long moment. "You sure?" he asked quietly. Clara stepped closer until there was no space left between them. "I've never been more sure of anything." His hand came up slowly, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. His fingers lingered at her cheek, rough from work, gentle in touch. He did not rush. He never rushed. "Clara," he said softly. "Yeah. You ain't got to stay if you ever change your mind." She smiled. "I'm not staying because I have nowhere else to go," she said. "I'm staying because I want to." The prairie wind moved around them, carrying the scent of sunflowers and warm earth. Silas leaned down slowly, gave her time to pull away if she wished. She did not. Their kiss was not grand, not dramatic. It was simple, honest, like the life they had built. When they pulled back, the sunflowers stood tall behind them, the house steady at their backs. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote howled. Clara rested her head against his chest. His heartbeat was strong beneath her ear. "I'm glad he didn't come," she whispered. Silas tightened his arms around her. "Me too." And on the porch of a small house in the middle of wide-open land, two people who had once been waiting alone finally understood they had arrived exactly where they were meant to be.